Friday night with me and learning about fashion photography. I'm really honored to be here, and I love, connecting with other photographers and talking about all things photography. So we're going to do like a crazy crash course today. So it's going to be a lot of information that I'm going to throw at you guys. So feel free to ask any questions. I am like an open book. I'm going to be just sharing everything that I possibly can tonight. So I think it's going to be a really fun evening. So huge thanks to G-Tech and Samy's camera. You guys are awesome. I always love shopping there when I'm in California. And man, G-Tech did the best drives ever. I love working with you guys. So thank you for having me. So quick question for you guys. If you are interested at all in winning a G Drive or one of my books, I'm going to be giving away that at the end. So it'll be like a signed copy of my book. And so all you have to do is just follow me on Instagram, and I'm going to randomly pick someone from Instagram, like a new follow at the very end of the program. So if you don't want to follow me, you can unfollow me later. But if you want to win a book, feel free to follow me on Instagram under I am Dixie Dixon.
And she'll be picking a second person who will also be winning one of our G Drive Armor ATD hard drives. So do follow her, and she'll pick the 2 winners at the end.
Yes, can't go wrong with a G Drive. Some good storage. Okay, so let's dive into fashion photography. Fashion photography is something that as a photographer, you can really apply the techniques of fashion photography, whether you're shooting portraits, weddings, product photography. It really the essence of fashion photography is really applicable to all kinds of different photography. So that's what I'm hoping today, is that you guys will be able to apply it to what you do, no matter what it is that you shoot. So, whoops, it's not advancing. Sorry, guys.
Take it out of presentation mode, maybe, and there it goes.
You guys see the red line in the middle of the screen, or is that just on?
Oh, that's somebody annotated that. I can clear that.
Okay. Oh, I love Zoom. Technology is always an adventure. Okay, so it's working now. Oh wow, it's going so slow. Should I stop the share and then reshare it?
I guess so. You can try that real quick, see if that speeds it up or whatnot.
Sorry, guys. Good old technology. Okay, so now we're good, I think. All right. So let's get into a little bit more about fashion photography. So fashion photography, in my opinion, is not only just capturing the clothes, it's also capturing the essence of wearing those clothes and the feeling that goes along with wearing those clothes. So there's a lot of different ways people do fashion photography. There's a lot of folks that kind of capture sort of a mannequin type of look. With me, I love to capture the personality of the person that I'm shooting as well as the fashion, because it just brings about this whole mood and this whole soul of photography that I love to bring to life. So that's really kind of what I focus on, and just capturing the light in different ways. And, I use a lot of natural light in my work. I also use a lot of strobe, and we're going to actually go into detail about different kinds of lighting today and how to capture that. But I do a lot of magazine work. I love shooting with animals. I've been shooting a lot of animal type of photography with the fashion lately, just to capture that cool connection between the beasts of our planet and the models. And it's just a really fun experience. It's kind of taken me all over the world. And God, photography is the coolest career ever. I mean, it's just been such a fun adventure. My first big break was actually shooting for a TV show on HDNet, which is now Access Television. And I got to travel all over the world shooting swimsuit models, of all things, shooting for, this TV show and their advertising. And that's really kind of when I fell in love with fashion photography and really connecting with people and really connecting with a crew and getting a crew together for different shoots. So we did a lot of this type of work. It's kind of that Sports Illustrated style swimwear type of photography. So that is why I have so much of that in my book these days. But it's also fashion. I mean, swimwear is fashion. So here's a current client list, just so you can kind of get an idea of the kind of things that we shoot. And so I not only shoot fashion, I shoot a lot of commercial work as well. So that's like advertising for hotels, for denim brands, for clients like Nikon, Disney. We shoot a lot of lifestyle work for the commercial brands. It's kind of that slice of life type of look, shooting it commercially. So you might be photographing a product and making it look really fun in the process and stuff like that. So it's been a really interesting journey. Oh my goodness. Let's see. I'm trying to get it to go to the next. Oh, there you go. So we shoot a lot of ads and, you know, billboards and things like that. It's really crazy. I don't know if you guys have ever been published in a magazine, but it's always the coolest feeling when you get to have your image on the cover of that magazine and see it out in the world. So it's just been such a neat process. And, you know, one of the biggest things of fashion photography is really creating that experience for your clients. So I've always really focused on that. And when people have fun with you on set, it really allows you to continue to work with that same client over and over again. So I have a lot of repeat business and a lot of returning clients in the different work that I do. So let's talk about gear for fashion photography. And so I am so into gear. I don't know if you guys are the same way, but man, when a new camera comes out or a new drive, I am all on it. Keep in mind that I did not start out with the top of the line kind of gear. I only had the Nikon D70S camera and a 50mm lens. So that is the only gear that I had when I started. And I've sort of grown my equipment list as I've grown my business. So it's been an interesting process. I definitely tell you guys to rent the gear before you end up buying it, because you want to figure out really what you love to shoot before you go in and invest in equipment. So I rented lighting for the longest time until I figured out that I really love like those pro photo lights. So you kind of really get an idea of what you love. So here's a somewhat current shot of my gear bag. Would love to know if, I guess I can't ask this question because you guys can't even respond, but I always shoot prime lenses. I always love to hear like what are in your camera bags. But I used to shoot both zoom a little bit, but I only shoot prime these days for fashion photography. So some of my favorites are like the 85mm lens, the 58mm lens. Gosh, the 105 is my absolute favorite headshot lens. So those are definitely some of my faves. And I still do shoot some film. I do have my first film camera. I do that on occasion when I'm shooting personal work and things like that. I always wear a hat when I shoot. For some reason, it makes me feel more creative when I have a hat on. But those are kind of the main things with fashion photography. It's good to have at least a 50mm, and I'd say like a 105mm. I'd say if you're starting out in fashion photography, those are probably two of the best lenses to start with. So you can get full length fashion with the 50, and you can get like those beautiful headshots with the 105.
We have a comment, Dixie, that somebody has a 50mm, but they like their 24-70 and their 70-200.
Nice. Those are great lenses. Absolutely. I actually shot an event this past week. I don't do a lot of events, so I ended up having to rent a 70-200. Believe it or not, I don't own a 70-200. So those are great lenses to have. Absolutely.
We've also got someone with a 50, an 85, a 400, and a 105.
Ooh, a 400. That sounds fun. I bet that's a wildlife shooter, maybe, or sports. That's cool. Right on. So I'm currently shooting now with the Nikon Z series, and I love it. I love it. I didn't think that I was gonna love mirrorless as much as I have, but especially for video. So for instance, I have the Z6 II and the Z7 II. And so I'll put the Z6 II, which is amazing for video, on a gimbal, you know, during a photo shoot, and we'll film a lot of behind the scenes and also just some really cool clips of the models and stuff like that. And then I'll shoot the stills with the Z7 II because it's crazy high res, you know, 45 megapixels. So that kind of ends up being a really nice pair, and they're so lightweight that it just allows you to capture things and not like have your back hurt at the end of the day. Because I don't know if you guys have ever shot like the D5. It's a massive camera. It's just a lot, especially when you put a big heavy lens on it. So as a woman photographer, it is nice to have these new lightweight type of gear to work with. And just, man, just the detail that comes out of these, just, it blows my mind. It's crazy. Like you can see so much detail in the files. And I have a couple of retouchers that have actually worked on the Nikon files, and they said that there's really nothing that compares to how much comes right out of the camera. Like you don't even need to do a lot of sharpening and stuff like that. So it's an interesting process because I've always been a Nikon shooter, so I don't really have much to compare it to, but I definitely love their gear. And this was the Z6 or the Z7 campaign, and it was a really fun shoot. We ended up doing this in an old warehouse in the middle of nowhere. It was a place called Mejia, Texas, and it was very interesting because they had this old abandoned building, and a lot of people actually had to sign waivers to get into this building to shoot. But they had this old library at the top of the building that was set up, and the books were all still there. It looks super haunted, but it was a really fun shoot. We set up all these books and had her in this crazy, kind of reminds me of like Harry Potter or something like that. And it was funny because there wasn't power in the building, but however, like that light turned on. So apparently there was power somewhere, but it seemed super haunted, but it made for some really cool shots. So for instance, like when you're doing this kind of shoot, I really wanted to capture those sun rays coming through the windows. And the way you do that is just adding in a hazer or a fog machine. And you can get those anywhere. Like I just screenshotted this one from like a party store, but you can use these and then capture some really nice rays of like the windows coming in and the window light. So it's
somebody just asked that question just before you spoke it. So yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
This is one of my favorite images of yours. I've commissioned it and used it in a bunch of my marketing materials. I think it was actually on one of our booths at Photo Plus last year when trade shows were still happening.
Yes, I miss those days. That's awesome. Yeah, this is definitely one of those images we almost didn't get. It was the very end of the day and my crew had been working 12 hours and I sort of had to beg them to go up to the top floor of this building, and it was like blazing hot outside. It was in Texas in July. So it definitely was worth it. Worth it in the end, Sometimes you really got to go all out to get that last shot of the day, So just to show you guys a quick behind the scenes video. Sorry, so much.
I was gonna say now the audio is playing on a Dixie after we tried it before and the audio didn't play.
No, yeah, I just silenced it. But yeah, this shoot was a 3-day adventure, and we shot. Different shoots have different needs, and they wanted a behind the scenes film as well as all these different setups, because when you're launching for a camera brand, they want to show the camera in lots of different situations. So we ended up, capturing all kinds of texture, all kinds of different lighting, and 3 different models for this particular shoot. And so it was just a really crazy 3 days. I mean, we jam-packed so much in there. We did a lot of natural light and also did quite a lot of strobes. And what was so interesting is, like, when we do shoots for Nikon, they usually don't give us the camera till like the day of the shoot. So it's sort of nerve-wracking when you go into it. You have to really have like a problem-solving mindset and just to kind of be brave and go in there and hope that, you can pick it up quickly. Luckily, I've been a shooter my entire career, but it's definitely an interesting experience, and you got to be very careful. Like, everyone has to sign model releases on set. They have to sign NDAs that no one releases anything about the cameras before it's released, because if something gets leaked, that can be like a career killer.
How far in advance are you doing those before the camera's released?
Usually, actually this shoot, we only had about a week and a half to plan, so they're pretty quick turnarounds.
Okay.
Yeah, so which is kind of exciting when they give you that much of a quick turnaround. But, when you're working with Nikon US, sometimes it's a quicker turnaround. With Nikon Japan, they sometimes give you more time to plan because they know about the camera before the US does usually. Okay. So it's definitely an interesting experience for sure. Really fun. So let's talk about,
I want to go back 1 second because we had a bunch of questions. People seem to really like your idea about the fog machine. And they were asking which model and whatnot. And I think you had just sort of kind of said anyone is fine. So I just wanted you to reiterate that a little bit.
Absolutely. I mean, so I've had a few different ones. And so I've had the cheap one, like the $30 one from the party store, and those actually work. Those work pretty well. So you can get those if you want to go the cheaper route. And then if you want to get more like a heavy duty fog machine, you can actually rent those from video warehouses, like people that rent stuff for films and stuff like that. So you can rent one. I guess the higher the price, the more heavy duty fog machine you'll get. So you'll get more fog. But the cheap one will actually do you fine. I've used those a ton of shoots. They don't travel well. We've taken them with us on airplanes. Like we took a fog machine over to Brazil with us, and with all the suitcase and all that, it didn't work when it got there. So it's just a matter of, quality. If you want something that's going to last you a while, you want to go.
I was just going to say, what's the difference between the cheap ones and the more expensive ones? You just say sort of the lifetime of it.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, because I have like $100 one that I've had for a few years now, and it works really good. You just have to buy the liquid that goes into it when you run out. So it's pretty easy. Very good questions though. Yeah. All right. So let's go over a little bit about lens selection now that we're, let's see, done with the fog machine. So when I was first starting out, especially when I was shooting for that TV show, I only had that 50mm lens because I was literally right out of college. And so I was not getting the kind of results that I was looking for. And I was shooting everything with that 50, which, I mean, for some stuff, it looked really beautiful, but it was interesting because the cinematographer on set said, Dixie, you need to try using like a longer lens. I think you're going to really love the results of that. And so I ended up borrowing from my dad this 180mm lens that he had from his old Nikon. And I took that with me on set and started shooting with it. And I would have to be further back, but the compression effect of it, I was totally blown away by. Just the way that it made the models' faces look more natural, and it also kind of blurred the background a little bit, and it just made for this sort of iconic type of look with that 180. So I started shooting so much with that, and now I love that lens for like headshots and stuff. So I definitely recommend trying a longer lens, especially for headshots, and just seeing the kind of looks that you get, because I think you'll really love the results. Now I will use the 35 for like a wide angle fashion shot if I want to capture like a lot of the scene and the model within it, like a full length shot. But man, for headshots and beauty photography, you've got to have like that longer lens. This is shot with the 180. So you can see how the background just becomes super creamy and beautiful, and her face doesn't look distorted or anything like that. It's just a really nice, clean look. And this was also shot that same way. And you can see the difference. Like, so the one on the middle obviously is that long lens, that's the 180. The one on the left-hand side was shot with the 50. No, wait, the 85. Sorry, the one on the left is shot with the 85. And the one on the right was shot with the 50. So you can see how more of the image is going to be in focus when you're shooting with like a 50 as opposed to like an 85 or a 180. So it's kind of an interesting look to play with depending on what your style of photography is. But I love those long lenses.
Were you at the same distance from the model for all three of those shots with the different
I was. Yeah, that's a very good question. I mean, the background's cool. Like sometimes you really want the background to be in focus. I mean, it was a cool background. So I tend to shoot, like when I'm shooting a model, I usually like to start wide and then get closer. And so I'll start out getting the cool wide shots, and then I'll change to like an 85 and then a 105. So you kind of have everything to work with when you're in post-production, depending on what the client wants and stuff like that. So it's nice to get all the above. And that goes for both video and for stills. So you definitely want to have a nice mixture of stuff to work with. So love that long lens. Can't go wrong. And then this one I shot with the 85. I love giraffes. I don't know about you guys, but man, they're just so cute. I really bonded with them on this shoot. And it was funny because the giraffes, the mom giraffe, her name was Harriet, and that's her baby Joy. They're actually orphans. And they just were so cool to work with. And it's this amazing guy who takes care of them. and he let us shoot their beautiful giraffes. What was funny is I accidentally left one of my lenses in the giraffe area, and he actually chewed up my 35 millimeter lens. It was not good. We were actually very afraid that he swallowed it, but luckily the lens was too big. He actually had grabbed it and then put it over the fence in a pail of water. So he knew what he was doing.
Did you have to use strobes when photographing these?
So that's a very good question. So with animals, most of the time you can't use strobes because the flash freaks them out. Now, depending on the animal, so we've shot longhorns that were super trained, and they're fine with the flash. You really kind of have to ask the owner if the animal's going to be comfortable with flash. The giraffes, we didn't want to like spook them or anything like that because they're just such a massive animal. But this giraffe was a pretty amazing model. I mean, he really loved the camera. He kind of posed and just kind of bonded with the model, and it was pretty amazing to see that. Because
we have another question about using sun bounce or reflectors on animals.
Yeah, so I would say it applies with both. So when you use a reflector and it's sunny outside, you're going to get that sort of flash of light when you use it on them. But sometimes it's a little bit less than like the strobe flash. So I believe on this day, trying to remember if we may have used a little bit of bounce, because it does help. It definitely helps when you're using like backlight. So I just say you kind of have to gauge the animal and just ask the owner. Same with strobe, but you just got to be very careful. And you also don't want to wear perfume when you go to an animal shoot, because the animals, they like to smell your actual scent. And I'd recommend really trying to bond with them before you actually go into shooting, because you just want them to be super comfortable. So if you go into a shoot with an animal and you're super fearful, you can't go in there super fearful, because they can actually feel that energy and they might get a little bit spooked. So you have to be really careful with animals and just go in there super confident and wanting to bond with them. And usually they have been pretty great. We haven't had any crazy happenings with animals yet, so that's good. But we're not shooting lions or anything like that.
You have any zebras? Because one of the audience members is a fan of all your zebras on Instagram.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you. Yes, this was the zebras. It was actually at the same place. So we got to shoot the zebras. They were awesome. I think I have them somewhere in here. But I'll show you guys some of the zebra shots. The zebras were super easy to work with as well. So we've been really lucky with the animals. So let's gear wise, let's talk a little bit about workflow, and then we're going to get into more fashion techniques. So this is kind of like a full circle presentation today. Workflow is something that I have struggled with, and I've come to a place where I feel very comfortable and very positive about kind of the workflow that I currently use. So currently, depending on the job, sometimes I'm shooting to just memory cards, like just like the XQD cards for the new Nikons. So we'll shoot to memory cards and then I'll back them up on set. But a lot of times the clients want to see the images come up instantly on set. So basically I have to shoot tethered to a computer. And the software that we like to use is Capture One. And the reason is gosh, it's just something about Capture One. It just works really well for tethering. A lot of people use Lightroom. I haven't really actually even learned Lightroom, but Capture One for me, when you export the images out of Capture One, there's like a quality that I can't quite put into words when you export out of this software. And so I've been using that quite a lot. Like I like the exports better than exporting out a Bridge or Lightroom. For some reason, just like the sharpness and the color, everything just tends to look really beautiful exporting out of Capture One. So that's why I use that. I'm not sponsored by them or anything. I've just found through trial and error that they look really good out of Capture One. So on set, we're shooting tethered, and then you can see the cord right here in this particular photo. This is a shoot that we did for Kathy Ireland. So we're shooting to a computer, and usually the clients will all be hovered around the computer. watching as I shoot, which can be kind of intimidating if you're not used to it, but you definitely get used to it after a few years of doing that. But it definitely is very helpful because the makeup artist can see exactly what it looks like. So she can make some tweaks, the wardrobe stylist can make tweaks as she goes. So people can see things, happen in real time. So that's really, really important. And then as we're shooting, so these are the field drives that we use. These are the G-Tech SSDs. This is the pro version, so it's crazy fast, really amazing, amazing drive. I love the mobile SSDs because they're so small and compact, but they're not too tiny that you'll lose them. So I use these. I usually bring at least 3 of these on set with me as a field drive. And then I have, if I'm not doing the backing up, because a lot of times things are moving so fast, I have to have a digital tech that's manning the computer, and they will be actually backing up, usually using photo mechanic to these drives to make sure that everything is backed up on set, because the last thing you want to do is have this big $50,000 production and things get lost, or something gets, I've had it happen in the past, and so we've learned that the hard way. So we always want to have it backed up on set. At least 3 backups is the way to go, just in case. And then you can also FedEx home a drive if you're traveling. Sometimes we'll do that. From if we're shooting out of town, we'll FedEx a drive back and then travel on the plane with 2 of the drives. I usually give one to my assistant. I take one. And so we have it in different areas just in case.
Dixie,
So
we got to get you set up with a NAS drive so you can just upload something right to wherever you have a NAS drive.
That is a very good idea. I need to do that. That is a good call. Yeah.
Next event, that's what I'll get you one ahead of time, and then you can put it into the presentation after you've used it for a while.
Oh, that'd be awesome. We can really master that backup. So it's always a work in progress, I gotta tell you. It's awesome. And these drives just look cool. This was a campaign that we shot for G Drive. And it was just, they photograph amazing, beautiful setup. So once I get back to the studio with those field drives, then I've got at least 2 shuttles. These are the ones on the left-hand side. I have the smaller ones. I think they're like 24 terabyte capacity. So I've got a live work drive and an archive drive. And so all of the stuff from the field drives then gets exported to, or not exported, but transferred over to these 2 shuttles. And so you've got 2 duplicate backups in studio. And I actually work from those drives. They're really, really fast. And I have a bunch of them over here. You can't see my office right to the right of me is a ton of these drives. But yeah, so we do a lot of work from these. And then the third backup, sometimes I used to actually have a 3rd drive at a separate location, but now I have the unlimited Dropbox, and I'll upload them, each client to the cloud as well. So then that's the 3rd backup. So you have 3 duplicate backups of all your data, and then you also might have them on a field drive. So there's a lot of different backups. And it's just so important, especially when you're getting into like the fashion and commercial space. Just because you don't want to lose the images. It's a little, and with weddings, I mean, if you lose wedding photography, that's, ooh, I don't want to ever experience that. I've missed the kiss at a wedding before, and that was hard enough. So you definitely want to have those. And
so we have a question. Have you ever actually needed 5 backups? And I just wanted to kind of say, it's one of those, I'll let you speak to it, but I also just wanted to throw in that it's one of those situations where having the multiple backups means that if one of those fails, or you lose one, or you break one, or misplace one, you never know which one it's going to be. So if you just went with 1 backup, there's nothing to say that 1 backup would actually survive the travel or get to the destination or whatnot. So having multiple, you might not need 5 backups, but it just ensures that you don't lose your backup when you're in a situation where you actually needed that backup.
So true. And keep in mind those field drives. So I keep 3 backups in studio. Those are, it's 3 is sort of a sweet spot, I think. Because the field drives, we will delete the data off of those and then reuse them in the field. So you don't necessarily have to have 5. I hope I made that.
I mean, we always tell them you have
have
your data in 3 places: on the computer, you have a backup drive, and then you have an offsite. You mentioned you have an unlimited Dropbox account and you put stuff up there when you're done. That's the key one, in my opinion, of always having at least an offsite backup somewhere, because you can have a backup drive that sits next to your computer or your workload, but what if there's an emergency, a fire, an earthquake, or you get robbed or something? They're going to take all that hardware. So you just want to make sure that you have something outside of the scope of your limited area of where you are.
Exactly. That's really well said. And actually, I didn't say, I guess I technically have four backups, because when I fill up one of these shuttles, I'll then duplicate it to some other drive and then keep that off site just in case.
Are you using these shuttles in RAID 5 mode, or are they in 0?
They're in 0.
Yeah, okay.
They're for speed. Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, because I work from them. And so it makes it super fast. Yeah, so RAID 5's great though. Yeah. All righty.
Somebody asked, how many gigabytes do you typically go through on a shoot?
Ooh, that's a good question. God, it just depends. These new files that come out of these cameras, they're massive. I have been filling up these hard drives way faster than I used to. But I don't even know that I could tell you how many gigabytes. I mean, we sometimes go through a terabyte of video footage just in one shoot. So it really, obviously stills won't take up that much room, but it's amazing how fast you fill it up. Yeah. And then a lot of times I'll daisy chain them together. So that works really well. I've just been really impressed with these in general. So I have 6 of them over here. So one of the softwares I wanted to bring up, nobody knows about this software. I can thank Lucas Gilman for this, because I was really trying to figure out my workflow.
I was just gonna say, I think I remember him talking about this on one of my events a while back. So yeah.
Oh my gosh, yes. This software is saved me so much time. It's called Post Haste, and it's free. So free is awesome. But basically it allows you to set up your folder structure for every single job and keep everything really organized. So as you can see, this is the basic folder structure that I have for every job. So I've got raw images, exports, which are print, TIFFs, web size, working on TIFFs, all the production documents. So in the past, I would have to set up all these folders, one at a time. And it just takes a while. And sometimes things get crazy and then they get put in the wrong folders. So now everything has a place. And so you basically create this template and then you set up a new folder for every job, and it'll name everything by like project number, client, project name, date. So you go to create project and it'll create that project on your shuttle or whatever drive you've got. And so it just creates this nice workflow where everything has a place to be put, with the raw files and the video footage and everything, because there's just so much to organize. And it's just really made it extremely helpful. So if you guys need, help with that, download that software. It's very helpful. So I just wanted to talk about building your dream teams just a little bit. And this is such a big part of photography, especially commercial and fashion photography. And the way that I did that was actually through a website. It's very old school. If you guys have ever heard of Model Mayhem. So that was kind of the place where you networked in the industry back in the day. Now Instagram is pretty much how you do that now. But I do work with quite a large team. And I started out just shooting like me and a model, and we would do shoots. And then I suddenly realized, after I studied abroad with a fashion photographer, and I saw this amazing team that he had. He had the hair and makeup, he had the wardrobe, he had a producer that was setting up the day of the shoot. from like getting the meals for the talent and like setting up the models and working with the modeling agency. So I love this whole big circus that was happening. And I was like, I wonder how you build your team. So I started networking with makeup artists and models on there and really kind of figured out who I love to work with. And we would all come together basically back then for free to shoot some amazing portfolio work. And that grew to shooting for modeling agencies, because modeling agencies always need new pictures of their new faces and their different models. And then eventually that led to shooting for boutiques, little fashion designers that were starting out. And then I started creating meetings, and that's my assistant, with different fashion brands and stuff like that, and connecting. And so it kind of grew organically. And if you can build a really great team, you're going to really be able to create even better images because they're going to empower you to be able to do and focus on photography. So they're doing the hair, makeup, the wardrobe. So you can really focus on that final image. So the dream, I call them the dream team because I love working with them and they really creatively inspire me. They're all super passionate about what they do, but it just allows me to do my thing and then they do theirs. And it's like we all come together to create something bigger than we could have created by ourselves. So that's what I love about fashion photography. It's
How
just,
many people are on your dream team, or average people on your dream team?
yeah, so that particular production was a big production. So there was probably 20 people on set, just because there's so many moving pieces involved in that one. But like my main two people that I work with are my producer, Nancy. She's awesome. She's so organized. She's more type A than I am. She's not even type A, but more type. I'm very lax about organization and stuff like that. So she's on it. So she keeps me organized with the productions and then invoicing, all those business aspects. And then Eric is my lighting tech. And I've worked with him for, gosh, probably 10 years on every job. He's awesome, really great guy. He's worked in LA with a bunch of the big brands and now he lives in Texas, which is great. But then I have a lot of hair, makeup, and wardrobe stylists that I love to work with, depending on, the client and the different brand. Because some brands, they want sort of natural, beautiful hair and makeup. Some brands might want the sort of avant-garde. So you might hire a different makeup artist or something for different things. So really, it's just like a building block. Everyone you meet is going to be could be helpful in your career and working with different people. And that's really part of the fun of this industry, I think, is just networking with all these different folks. So like, for instance, this shoot was just a model test in California at El Matador Beach. And I think we had a hair makeup artist and the model, and she brought her own wardrobe because there wasn't a lot of wardrobe.
I was just gonna say, what wardrobe?
Yeah, exactly. She wanted like that Victoria's Secret style vibe in these shots. But yeah, so it really depends on the production. Like this was a big production. Obviously, it was for Kathy Ireland. When you're working with celebrities, especially, you've got to create the experience for them. Because that's going to keep them coming back to want to shoot with you. Kathy Ireland was one of the most, God, she's amazing. She was a supermodel, Sports Illustrated, like 13 consecutive issues. And then now she's like this crazy successful super mogul. She has 21,000 products licensed in the market. So I was nervous to work with her, but she was such a kind spirit. And we shot on the beach. We shot 2 days in a row, did all these different kinds of setups and things like that. And the thing is, like, we always had her, like, she was an hour from the location. So we sent a nice vehicle to pick her up, the black cab or whatever the night. We want to create that experience. You could even send them flowers the night before the shoot. You want to always have food on set. You really got to create a nice experience for celebrities and stuff because they're kind of used to being catered to. But she was just awesome. Like, I always love to have their favorite music playing on set. And Kathy actually wanted Christian music playing on set. So it was like a really high vibes type of production. It was a really fun shoot. This is for her AIDS organization. She works a lot with the Elizabeth Taylor Foundation, and they give a lot of money to AIDS research and stuff like that. So this image was created especially for that. And so it was just a really interesting opportunity. We did a lot of studio and then also some natural light. and stuff like that. But definitely create that experience for your clients. Even if it's just as simple as having some snacks on set, because people, I don't know about you guys, but I get super hangry when I'm hungry on set.
So Dixie, going back a little bit, when you talk about your team, we've got a few people asking questions
Yeah.
about how to find stylists or clothes that you can use for the models, especially the stylists. People seem to want to know how you find good stylists to work with.
That is such a good question. So for me, when I travel, a lot of times, I don't know as many people. Like in Texas, I know a ton of stylists just because I've worked on different jobs and stuff like that. But a lot of times the modeling agencies actually rep stylists as well. And sometimes they like to build their book too. And so the modeling agencies are a really great resource. So if you can reach out to the modeling agencies, you can just Google modeling agency LA. There's going to be a million of them. And a lot of times they'll rep makeup artists, wardrobe stylists. Reach out to them and ask if there are wardrobe stylists that would want to collaborate, or if it's an actual job, then you can hire them. And even if they don't rep wardrobe or hair and makeup people, they'll know those people because they're very well connected. I can't tell you how many times I've called the modeling agencies and asked for referrals. So I would say that's a really great resource. Sometimes I use Instagram. I find stylists on there. I'm like, wow, I need to work with them. They've got really cool stuff. But I'd say the modeling agencies are probably the best bet. Even the rental houses, like photography rental houses where you can rent studio spaces, a lot of times they'll know a good wardrobe stylist. And then if you don't have a budget and you can't find a stylist that'll do it for free, what's very normal in this industry is actually to go to places that you can return stuff and, it's on for 10 minutes and then you can return it later. So I know it sounds a little sketch, but it's actually very normal in the fashion industry. I was working in a studio for, I think it was like JCPenney when I was interning, when I was first starting out. Even the stylist in there would go and source stuff. Like if we needed office supplies for a particular shoot, they would source it and we would photograph it and then it would go back to the store. So it's actually pretty normal in this industry to do that. You just got to be aware like what the store's policies are. And then also if you can actually develop a relationship with these stores and just be upfront about what you're doing, a lot of times they'll work with you. So it's a good question for sure. All righty. So moving on, let's talk a little bit about camera settings. So these are the basic camera settings that I use. So aperture wise, I like to keep it pretty wide open, unless depending on what I shoot. So if I'm shooting like a portrait or a headshot, I could be shooting at f2, f2.8, f3.5 in that sort of range, because then your eyes are super tack sharp and then everything else just falls out of focus really nicely. Now, if I'm shooting like jewelry on a model, I might shoot at say f11. The reason is when you're shooting close-ups with beauty, you want to have the jewelry in focus, if they got like earrings or something, and the model in focus. So you just got to think about how much of the photograph that you need in focus. If you're shooting like product photography, sometimes you got to shoot it at f8, f11, f16, just to get everything super tack. So it really depends on what your end goal is. So shutter speed, I like to keep it pretty fast unless I'm doing some kind of blurred technique. At least 1/250th. I move way too much when I shoot. It's kind of like a dance. So I tend to keep it pretty high, even a 1/500th of a second. Try to keep your ISO as low as possible, depending on how much light is in the room. Then I'm always moving the focus point to the eyes, which the cameras now, like the new Z series, has that eye autofocus, which it works incredible. So you don't even have to do that anymore. So it's kind of saves a lot of time. Like this was the zebra shoot that we did recently. And so I shot this, I think at f5.6, because I wanted to be sure to have most of the zebra and most of the model in focus. So just thinking about those things before you go into your settings is really, really important.
Wait, so the model and the zebra here aren't shopped together? Aren't photoshopped together? You shot them? Did you shoot the giraffes with those models?
Yes.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yes, it's crazy. Yeah, these were all shot as it was.
Okay.
So yeah, these animals were particularly easy to work with, which is pretty rare because I think a lot of people do probably edit them together. Like this shot, yeah, it was all shot this way. If I had it all perfect, I would have had her hair a little bit more perfect.
Okay.
But you know, you get what you kind of have to be very flexible when you're shooting with animals. We did kind of enhance the background on the giraffe shot, but the animal and the model were all shot together. That's a very good question. Yeah, a lot of people might think otherwise. So I like to really keep it tack sharp on those eyes. And then like this is shot probably at 1.8, and it's just nice how the background just falls out of focus really beautifully. This is actually window light, one of my absolute favorite type of lighting to shoot. So my back is to the window and I'm shooting in to this model's face, and it just, the light just like wraps around your subject really beautifully. So I love that type of lighting, especially for like headshots and things like that.
So like
And
little things that go back, yeah, like
yeah,
the hair falling just over her eye. Is that placed there, or did she just sort of turn her head and that happened and you shot it? Like how are the little things like that come to
yeah,
pass?
that's a good question. Yes, I believe that the model, you know, I like to have the models move every so often. And I think the hair just sort of fell over her face. I was like, oh, that's the shot, you know? So it's a matter of kind of just playing with it. Sometimes the hair and makeup artist will keep playing with the hair, and I'll be like, put a little bit of hair over one eye. It kind of is very mysterious. So it's kind of just a dance. Sometimes you end up like with, if as I'm shooting, I kind of shoot through moments. So I'm not, I'll shoot way more frames than I need to get those exact shots that I'm looking for with this like crazy, beautiful mood where you kind of feel the soul of the person that you're shooting. So this one stood out to me because of that hair. That's a really good question. And yeah, it's just kind of a preference. You know, this one, the hair is also going over her face a little bit. So we had her kind of moving a little bit, nice movement with the hair. And this is shot exactly the same way with that light just wrapping around her. So, you know, I might shoot 100 frames of this shot to get this one particular image that I totally love. But that's really the beauty of digital. If I, you know, when
Yeah.
I shot film, you would have maybe a few frames per look or whatever it is. But this allows me to, I think, really capture that mood that looks candid, that looks effortless, that doesn't look posed. So the last thing that I want to do is just create these boring, posy type of pictures.
When you were shooting with film, how often would you get to the end and when you were developing it and go, I really didn't get any photos I liked, or you had to submit stuff where you're like, this is the best we did, but I don't really like it. And now that you know everything's digital, you get the feedback right away and you can keep going until you get the one shot you want.
Yes, man, so often. I mean, I was in college, I think when it was like the last year they did the dark room. And so I would go out and shoot and think I created all these amazing shots. And I would get back to the dark room and be like, oh no, they're all blown out, or, you know, underexposed, or it would be so frustrating. And then you would try to remember what your settings were to go back to do it again. So yeah, it's amazing now just having that instant feedback. So we're pretty lucky as photographers now to be able to create and do what we do. And then yeah, so I just like to create the kind of wide shots, the close-ups. This is shot pretty shallow depth of field. You can see how the dress sort of falls out of focus towards the camera. So that's all done on purpose. And I just like that real soft, beautiful type of effect. So let's talk a little bit about posing, because I get asked a lot of questions like, how do I pose models? And the funny thing is my posing secret is to not pose. Like, don't pose the model. I know that might sound annoying because you're like, well, people don't know how to pose. Like, for instance, this isn't a model that I shot. This is actually a friend of mine. And so I want to just give you guys some techniques to use when you go into photographing people, because it can be hard to communicate and try to get these effortless types of looks. And it's definitely a dance. You kind of have to shoot more frames, I'd say, than you'd want to, you know, like, especially with people that aren't professional models, you're going to shoot more frames than you actually need to get those effortless shots. So I definitely recommend overshooting, especially with people that aren't professionals. But here are some of the secrets, they're not really secrets, that I like to use when I go in to try to pose models, or don't pose, if you will. Because a lot of times, so if you're working with professional talent, um, if you try and like pose their arms a certain way and you try to like, if you overly pose them, it's actually going to stifle their creativity, because models kind of know their angles already and they know how to move. So when you're working with professional talent, I'd say don't pose. This is kind of the basics of what you need to do. You need to look for inspiration, and so I will do a vision board for every different shoot that I do. And so, for instance, this was for a client. It was a skincare line, and they wanted these super powerful women, and kind of power poses, basically. So I will come up with a bunch of posing ideas. So I will scour the internet for different poses that I like, and then I will usually print these out and either send it to them beforehand, hopefully, and then I'll also have them on set on like a cork board, just so that the model can see that before they go on set. And this helps anyone, whether you're photographing portraits or models, so that the people can actually see your vision. So they can see, oh, they want me to kind of do my arm like this, or, leaning back in a chair, crossing their leg. So this really helps communicate the different kinds of ideas that you're thinking posing wise, so that they can do it in their own way and it's not like contrived looking. So this is a particular mood board for this. This was for a company called Glacial. It's like a really cool skincare line. So yeah, so we did all these different kinds of poses throughout the shoot, and it just kind of helps the models really get inspired and know kind of what the vision is. So I definitely recommend doing a vision board or a mood board before all your shoots, and it will really help you create the looks. So the next thing you want to do is, when you're photographing people, be looking for different shapes. So a lot of times triangles photograph really well. So you can see this model creates nice triangles with her arms, and it just sort of frames her face. And so triangles photograph really beautifully. You can look for, S curves a lot of times with their body shapes. You can also look for like S curves in backgrounds, like with the roads. S curves just tend to look really beautiful. So if you see, so basically I'm not going to pose a model in these, but when I see that, I'm going to be like, wait, hold it there. That's an amazing, look. And I'll tell them to kind of work it with that pose. So I'm letting them do their thing. I'm just looking for these kind of shapes as I'm shooting. For this one, the next thing that you need to do is with posing is to try to give them an action. And so for this one, I told them the story. I said, I want you guys to pretend like the truck is broke down, pretend like you're pushing it to a gas station or something. And because this was for a denim brand, so we really wanted to showcase the denim and the pockets and everything. So just giving them an action to do kind of creates, especially for people that aren't professional models. Like, this wasn't a professional model. She was awesome though, man. She was perfect for this. But I just told her to spin around in the chair and pretend like she's just having a blast at the office. So you can kind of give them the idea beforehand, play some music, really get into it. This was for Virgin, Richard Branson's company, and he's supposed to be playing the computer like you would like a piano or a keyboard or something. So people are having fun at the office. So I kind of told them the idea. We got music playing. Music's really big on photo shoots. If you guys just shoot in silence, it's really hard. It's really hard for the models to get into it, or portraits if you're shooting, normal folks. And so you always want to have music playing. That's a big part of it. So like for this one, I just told the model just grab his jacket and just pretend like he's Top Gun, kind of have that attitude, and that kind of brings that look to the shots. And I told him to kind of run through putting on his helmet and his goggles. Just giving them an action creates more of a soft look where they can just do their thing. Like, this is one of my favorite actions to give people, is to have them walk towards camera. So I'll start them out about 10 steps back, and I'll just say, all right, guys, walk towards camera, holding hands, talking, laughing, and they kind of just get into it. And you take a bunch of frames, put it on rapid fire continuous, and then you're going to capture like some really beautiful moments. So I do that a lot. I do the walking shot. Sometimes if they have trouble walking that far, because sometimes, you know, it can look awkward if people aren't experienced, you can have them take like one baby step and then go back and just take one step at a time. So it really kind of just depends on who it is, and you sort of have to treat it like a dance and see if you get cool stuff. And the kiss shot's always interesting because so many people will actually pucker their lips, and you never want that because then it just looks like, you know, fishy face. So whenever you're shooting like a kiss shot, you just want to have them relax their lips. They don't even have to, you know, pout or anything like that, and just, you know, have their faces close together. Like these models aren't even a couple, they're just acting, and they just look very effortless and beautiful. So it's definitely a fun adventure trying to kind of hone in on your posing. And a lot of times when people watch me shoot, sometimes I'm actually for some reason posing for the model. Like I'll be crossing my legs the way that I want the model to cross the legs. And so you know, sometimes I like to actually show them what it is I want them to do. So that's also a good point, is that you can kind of show it exactly what it is. Giving them a prop is also a good idea. So we gave her the flower, and it just kind of creates a nice mood. Even hats, you guys know I love the hats. I'm always putting hats on people. So yeah, they're kind of fun to play with, and they end up being, you know, it's kind of like a security blanket. Like you have a prop to work with, a surfboard or whatever it is, that really helps create and get people comfortable.
So Dixie, somebody asked a question and I kind of want to know the answer to. When you talk about the S curve, is there a male equivalent of the S curve?
That's a very good question. You know, I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think that there is a male S curve really, because if they were to do their body, I don't know. I could be wrong. I think that I tend to make the guys always look more boxy, because it's super masculine. But you know, I have yet to see a photograph with a male doing a cool S curve, but I'm sure it's possible.
or I was like, is there another pose that you like for them that you would? So it sounds like you would say it's a box. It's a rectangle.
Yeah.
It's a rectangle curve.
Yeah, there probably is. I'll have to go look through my shots of dudes and see if I can find any S curves in there. But yeah, that's a little tougher because the female models can move their bodies so much. Right. You know, there's limber and so dainty. Guys are more like boxy, masculine. But that's a good question. The one thing I wanted to bring up for this one, hair fan. This is such a great tool if you're into shooting portraits of women or dudes, obviously, because this shot, he's just standing there and I wanted like some ocean breeze in his hair. So my assistant's standing next to me with the hair fan and just creating, so when I say a hair fan, this is actually a leaf blower. This is from Home Depot. So these are great tools. They're battery operated. You don't get the plug-in ones. That's way too much wind. They're just going to be,
get the skin all floating back then at that point.
Exactly. So yeah, the Makitas are great. So we use these a lot. They've got a battery that you can plug in. They charge in like 15 minutes. And so we use these on almost every shoot, especially hair shoots. You can see how you get some just sort of nice wind with that Makita. And I actually find it to work better than those super expensive, fancy hair fans that you can buy in studios and rent. I like the Makita better because you just have more control. It does take some practice, I will say. Sorry. So it does take a little bit of practice, but you can see the model's moving, and that's her mom actually. And she's just like, has the hair fan on and just kind of blowing her hair. And it's just kind of an interesting, you just got to play with it until you get the right.
Do you find that the models blink too much or their eyes are closed when using that and you have to take a lot more shots? Or
you would think that, but it's actually not a whole lot of wind. It's very slight. So as long as they're not doing that right in their eyes, it tends to be okay. I actually have more trouble with models looking in the sun than I do with the winds making them close their eyes and stuff. But yeah, it's the Makita is pretty incredible. I mean, you can see here it just looks like natural, like everyday wind, but it gives it that movement, and I think it makes the photos more dynamic because it just creates this sort of
Doesn't
effortless.
even look like wind. It just kind of looks like that's her, and or maybe that she's slightly moving or something. Like it looks
Yeah,
really good.
totally. Yeah, especially when you kind of use a little bit of backlight too, it'll kind of highlight the hair. But man, it's incredible, especially if you've got like a model with long hair. You always want to put the hair all the way in front
Oh,
and then take the leaf blower and then it'll kind of blow it back just a little bit and then she'll put it in front again and you just kind of shoot a ton of frames so you get those few that look effortless. But yeah, they're awesome. We use them on, gosh, every shoot. So you can see, how it looks here, and it's pretty awesome. Like this one, the horse wasn't even moving, but for some reason when you add that wind in her hair with the leaf blower, it's like, oh wow, they're moving. So it's pretty awesome. This is at the very end of the day. There was like no light left, but we ended up still shooting. And actually, it was funny because there was just this guy walking by on his horse. He was drinking a beer. I think he was pretty drunk. We asked him if we could borrow his horse for a few shots, and so I ended up with some cool stuff. So I love that serendipitous nature of photography. You never know what's gonna happen. Now for doing fashion photography and capturing garments moving, a lot of times there's a few different ways to do this. You can have your assistant grab the bottom of the gown and throw it up in the air on three, like I count 3, 2, 1, brrr, shoot a ton of frames. And you can capture that nice movement on the dress. You can also, depending on the dress, you can put a fishing wire and attach it to the very bottom of the dress. And then the stylist or assistant can grab that fishing wire and just sort of move it around to create movement. So that's another way that you can do it if you don't want to throw it up in the air every time. So we've done it kind of a variety of ways. This one, we threw it up in the air, looked really nice, get nice kind of flow on the dress, but it just adds some nice dynamic movement to these. So again, love the animals. And then this one was a 50-foot train, crazy. So when you just laid it out on the floor, it looked sort of boring. It didn't have a lot of dynamic feel to it. So I ended up having my assistant just shake it, at the bottom. And then it just created this nice flow of the train, which really looked really beautifully. And then I shot it from the second story kind of down, and just really ended up being a beautiful, beautiful movement. So I'm all about the movement. This one shot that exact same way. Really pretty. S curves. Y'all see the S curves. And for this shot, I just wanted to bring up, we use a insulation board a lot. So this is also from Home Depot. So you can actually just grab a silver insulation board, cut it in half, and tape it along the edges and use either the silver side or the white side, depending on how much light that you want to bounce back in. But we use these on almost every production. And the reason is some of those flimsy fold up reflectors and wind, they're like impossible to get to work. So the flat piece of insulation board, it's a little bit easier to handle in the wind. So we use those quite a lot. And these are just, here's an example of one that you can get. They're just foam, and hopefully you can find the ones that don't say R Max on them. But those are a little better when they're just silver side or white side. So we use those all the time. Like for this one, we actually use the insulation board to create the look of a hallway. So we made them into V flats and just put them back to back, and then made this kind of cool look where it looks like she's in a hall or something. So there's a lot of different ways. I always like adding these like DIY things because you can get super creative with inexpensive kind of DIY type of stuff. Again, they're in the background here. You can see the the V flat boards are in there. And, you know, this was at a really cool old cotton mill. And we used pro photo strobes for these. So it was kind of a crazy setup. But do you guys see the crystals on the left-hand side? So basically, I like to shoot through crystals and things like that. So I'll put them in front of the camera. If you use like a long lens, like the 105, and shoot through some crystals, if they're right up against your lens, you can create some nice like bokeh, and it's really nice for if you're shooting a bride or something that's very feminine and soft. So here's that setup with the insulation boards, and we use the Profoto kind of deep white umbrella, and then a little bit of wind, and then also just hanging the crystals on top of this wire, so and shooting through that. So it's pretty, it sounds a little complicated, but it's actually pretty simple. And we did that here as well. And just those crystals were like photographed really nice. And then this is shooting through these sort of glass pieces. What are they called? Fractal filters. So if you want to get even more fancy, these are fun to play with for kind of bridal and high fashion type of photography. So they kind of just create a nice high fashion type of look, and they're prisms basically. They're really fun to work with. So I always like adding these in there because you can just, there's so much you can do with them. And then one other DIY thing is also from the hardware store. You can use panel board to avoid footprints. Like if you're shooting a white background. So for instance, white seamless, like when you're shooting a lookbook, man, if you just, I have photoshopped so many footprints from people's shoes. But if you use this panel board on top of the sweep, basically it's reflective, so it's going to reflect any footprints, and also you can wipe it off really easily, so you don't have to go through so much white seamless, and you can reuse these over and over again. So they're basically like linoleum flooring, and you can see how it kind of is a little bit reflective but not too reflective. So yeah, these are really great tools. You can also use them to kind of bounce light, and it's just very soft, and you don't get those footprints. So that'll save you guys a lot of money in retouching. Hopefully, it definitely has saved me a lot of time. So any questions on that stuff before we get into lighting?
Nope.
Awesome. Let's keep rolling. So to me, I always say that lighting is the love language of photography, because you can really make people look beautiful with lighting, and you can also make people look rough or, you know, not beautiful, because lighting really is the big part of photography. If you really want people to look amazing in your photographs, which that's always a good thing. People always love that. So I use a lot of natural light. If the light is beautiful in the location, I'm not going to overly complicate it by adding a bunch of extra lighting, because the less that I have to mess with the lighting, the more I can be more candid with my subjects. So here's just some basic things that I use for natural light. Always trying to shoot sunrise and sunset, and then midday, find shade. That's really big. And then I usually overexpose my skin tones by about 1/3 of a stop. And that just kind of cleans up any blemishes and things like that. And also allows me to do a little bit less retouching. So natural light is just so beautiful. I feel like it was the light that was made for us. Well, there's an S curve, speaking of which, kind of, with a guy. So with men, you can actually utilize side lighting, and it's going to kind of bring out the texture in their skin. For him, like his abs, it kind of creates a real masculine type of look. With women, I'm not going to put them in, you know, direct light that's from the side, just because it tends to bring out all texture. So it'll bring out texture in their skin and things, and maybe not look quite as soft and feminine. So, but with men, you can get away with that sort of harsher lighting. I love kind of shade during the middle of the day. That's always really beautiful. And then that backlight at the end of the day just looks really nice and natural. It kind of creates that nice hair light in the background. And man, it's just natural light, I feel like, was the light that was made for us. It's just really flattering and really beautiful if you use it the right way. That backlight's just so pretty. And it just softens sort of everything. And if you want to get a little bit more lens flare. You can actually use the older lenses that don't have the nano coating. You're going to get more flare than like the new fancy lenses. So for like this shot, I used the old, lens, the 180 millimeter, and it was actually made for a film camera. So it doesn't have the nano coating and you actually get more flare. So if you like the flare, you can use some of those older lenses. It's going to get really cool results. And then it's amazing to me just how low light you can shoot. Like there was no light left. I mean, this is a little bit grainy, but kind of in a nice way for black and white. But man, if you think that you don't have enough light, keep shooting, because you might actually end up with some beautiful moody type of stuff that works really well for black and whites. So we did the shoot in the stockyards recently. And then with this type of stuff, with strobe, you always want to light from above. And with any kind of lighting, actually, you want to start with one light, and the bigger the light source, the softer it's going to be. That's why the sun is so beautiful, because it's such a big source and it's bouncing off of so many different things. So keep that in mind when you go into lighting. These are all shot with strobe and just bouncing the light off of a white wall and then back into the subject. So it's not direct onto my subject. And that just creates a really nice, soft looking image that doesn't look overly lit. Because the last thing that you want to do with lingerie type of photography is overly light it, and then it just looks super cheesy. You want to keep that kind of soft feminine type of look. And so there was a lot of white walls around her that just bounced that light back in. I think we probably used a strobe in front, a strobe in the back, and then I think one bouncing off the left wall. It's kind of hard to remember.
Do you figure out the lighting by trial and error during the shoot, or do you kind of know what's going to work right away?
Oh, that's a good question. I do try to plan the lighting before the shoot, but when you get there, it always changes. So, if you can go into a shoot and pre-light the day before and practice on, the scenario you're shooting, that's always awesome. That's very rare that we get to do that. So a lot of times we'll show up 2 hours beforehand to get the light set up really nicely. And it may take 2 hours to get the lighting how we want it. But it's nice when you have that time to get it all fine-tuned. So once you get into it, don't feel like you have to set it up and know exactly how you're going to do it. Just keep moving out around the light until you get it exactly how you want it. That's really the key. Like we don't really use a whole lot of light meters or anything like that. We just look at it and see what we like. And getting it. But basically, usually with women, you usually want to bounce it off of a white card. You don't want to light from the side, and you want to have some nice backlight for the hair. And so we do kind of use basic techniques, but that's definitely a good question. So yeah, these are all that same lighting. I think I used the 200 millimeter f2 for this shot. It's such a creamy, beautiful lens, because there was just like a super long hallway. And then again, getting that wind in her hair with that leaf blower. And then this was at this really cool wedding venue, White Sparrow Barn. And we had some kind of crystals in front. And then again, bouncing the lights off of walls. Looked really pretty. It looks soft. I love window light. Gosh, window light's so pretty. And Fort Worth Camera here, it's like 10 minutes from where I live. They have the best kind of textured wall to use. So we do a lot of portraits. I even love shooting through windows. You can get some nice kind of effects. This is shot through a window. You get some nice kind of flare. And then keep in mind, you can actually add and subtract light. So for this one, you see the one on the right, it's definitely more flattering kind of because it brings out his jawline. And the way that I did that was, this is basically natural light. My back is to the window. On the left-hand side, it's just without anything. On the right, I actually added 2 black V-flats on either side of his face or shoulders. And that basically subtracts light. So it creates a shadow on his jawline. It makes his jawline more pronounced. So you can kind of shape light as you go and kind of create some nice effects very simply. And then constant light, we use constant light quite a bit in photography. And some of my favorite type of constant light also comes from the hardware store. So this is shot with I'll show you guys the picture of it. This is crazy contraption that my lighting tech, Eric, helped, we put together. And it's basically these type of lighting. They're just basically utility lights that you string together, and then you shoot through them. So they create a really nice kind of soft look, just really ethereal. So it's just very flattering, very soft. So we actually use these a lot for video too. And when you stream that many together, they're actually quite bright. So this was for a shampoo or hair company. So
Excellent.
anyway,
Can you go back to that rig for a second? I just want to take a
yeah,
longer look at it. It's very interesting.
yeah, it's funny. It's it's interesting how Eric actually got a board and then put nails on the other side and just hung them up there. So he just travels with these and a bunch of extra, cords.
And you just literally put the lens of the camera right up against it in between two of the bulbs
Just kind of
and
shoot right through it.
All right.
So this is definitely DIY. If you're looking to save some cash, this particular client didn't have a huge budget for lighting. So that was and ended up working out really well, because ideally we'd love to rent like a nice HMI, M18 or something like that for this type of scenario. But, you make do with the budget that you're given. So yeah, it's funny. We do a lot of this stuff. That's kind of the fun of it too. Like for instance, this one we lit with the light from the iPhone.
Okay.
So this was at the very end of the day, and we were just kind of shooting for fun. It was the editorial shoot was over, so I just kind of was still wanting to shoot. The whole crew left, but my wardrobe stylist stayed, and she kind of just shined the light on her face a little bit. It's definitely kind of a low light type of shot, but it ended up being pretty cool. So you can kind of make do with what you have, and create some really cool shots. So let's get into strobe a little bit. And oh wow, I didn't realize how late it was.
I was gonna say we probably should try to wrap up in about 10 minutes or so. So I don't know how much you have left, but you want to go through whatever you got a little faster.
Yeah, you got
not so many questions.
I'm keeping you guys up late on Friday night. Hopefully y'all are drinking wine or something. All right, so these are the basic strobe settings that I like to use, kind of similar to that of stills, or natural light type of shots, and choosing the aperture based on how much depth of field you want. This is the basic studio kit that I love to use. I think they're the D1s or D2s. We use those in studio. Some of my favorite modifiers are the Beauty Dish. Really nice. I love the one with the white interior. Really beautiful. It just creates a nice, soft yet contrasty type of look. And then umbrellas are also really nice. You can utilize these for fashion photography. It's a really, really soft. And I actually put Vaseline at the bottom of the filter to create this look where she's kind of like floating, which is kind of fun, and getting creative that way. And this is all shot with just this one shoot through umbrella. So keeping it pretty simple. I like to keep the lighting very simple. Soft boxes are great, especially when you're dealing with models that might have blemishes or something like that. Soft boxes are just a really nice soft tool. So this was shot with a big Octo softbox, and just is a really nice soft light source. And then we also do, this is shot the exact same way, that Octo, and then kind of strip lights on the sides, which is really soft and pretty. So we kind of keep it pretty simple. Now, if you want to get super fancy though, you can use the parabolic. I love these. Oh my gosh, for hair commercials and stuff like that, this parabolic creates the most beautiful specular highlights on hair and on skin. So we use these, and basically I stand in front of it and that light just wraps around my subject, kind of like a window would, and just creates some really nice looks. So you can see how it brings out those nice highlights in the hair. Kind of keeping it pretty and soft and simple, and it makes their skin look super porcelain. So I love the parabolic. Those are expensive. I don't own one. Definitely rent them when I need them, because they're very expensive. And the location kit that I have currently, I have the B1s, I know they have like the new fancy upgraded ones. I still have my same kit, but they're great for on location because they're battery operated, super easy to use. They're like plug and play. And I have a bunch of extra batteries that I've acquired over the years so that we don't lose power. But honestly, they give you quite a long time that you can shoot with each battery. So we love mixing kind of the sunlight with the strobe. For this type of shot, we put just one strobe in the background, just shining on their hair, and then kind of shining it towards the lens. You get a little bit of nice lens flare, keeping it pretty simple. This was shot right before a torrential downpour. It almost drenched our entire crew. But it was very, very overcast. So that strobe will just add like a nice look. And then for these, we use 2 lights to capture sort of a natural light look, but you get the nice hair light, and then you also get some nice light on the model's face. But you can see the setup there for that. And those are both beauty dishes. That's the Pro Photo beauty dish. And then the one on the right is a Mola beauty dish, which is a slightly different beauty dish. I find it to be a little bit softer than the Pro Photo. So it's pretty nice. And yeah, so these all look like they could have been shot with natural light. So that's what I kind of try to do with lighting, is to keep it super natural and beautiful. So, and then we added a gel in the background for this one, a nice blue gel, really pretty. This was for a local cowboy magazine. We have a lot of those in Texas. And then finally, I love experimenting with lighting. These were actually using hardware lights as well in the background, and then using a star filter on my lens. Kind of creates a fun, crazy effect. It's really beautiful. And yeah, so I'd say experiment, definitely experiment with fun tools. Go to Home Depot and try to find some different, things to work with, because you're going to end up with way more creative type of shots. This is kind of shooting a light through a cool cutout. So we would cut out stars in a piece of paper and just shine a light through it, and kind of creates a really fun sort of creative effect. And I don't know if we have time for editing secrets.
If you want to try to get through it in a few minutes, yeah, I'd love to hear them. So
okay, I think this is the end. I sort of was a little bit ambitious when I designed this. So this was a recent shoot that I did with a Longhorn. This Longhorn was named Flash. Gosh, he was awesome. Just super good with the camera. And this is one of my favorite models, Roxanne. She was awesome with the animals. So we shot these kind of downtown Fort Worth stockyards. And for this shot, I just wanted to show you guys quickly how I added, so you can see here that we didn't have nice clouds. Like I always, in my photography, I like to shoot things the way it'll end up being, but sometimes you're just not blessed with this perfect sky or something like that. So I actually use the Luminar software to sometimes add some clouds and sky. So I don't know if you guys have ever heard of Luminar. It's a super inexpensive editing software that actually is a plugin for Photoshop. So if you go to like the creative effects, you can do AI sky replacement, and then they have a bunch of skies that you can choose from. And you can also add your own skies. So if you have a bunch of skies that you've already shot, you can add them into the program, and then it'll actually mask everything out for you. It's so funny to me because I just recently started doing this, and I almost feel like it's cheating. I'm like, it's too easy to add those in there, but it does definitely help some of the photos to make them look even more dynamic. So I think it's really fun to work with. So I will do this if the sky is pretty boring. Like it was pretty boring on this day. It was just blue. But I think that the sky added quite a lot to the picture, and you can change like the temperature of the sky. So I made it super warm. You can add some haze. You can make it, defocus it just a little bit. But really it's super simple. It's like plug and play basically to add the different skies. So it's definitely a cool tool. You definitely have to find, the sky that works best for the image. So if you have a sky that doesn't fit, it tends to look really Photoshoppy and not cool. So you definitely have to find like a nice, happy balance with adding that in there. But I just wanted to share that in case you guys hadn't heard of that. But it's Skyloom Luminar software. Works really cool. And then the other thing that I love to do is called split toning. And basically in fashion photography, this is really huge. So you get to basically tone your shadows a certain color and then tone your highlights a certain color. So for this particular images, I did the highlights in sort of an orange type of color. And then I did the shadows in sort of that nice purpley kind of look. And it just really adds a lot to the photos. So you can see how we did that here. So this is the original and it's beautiful as it is, but I just kind of love the split tones. It kind of just adds a little bit more to the photo. And we also used it here. I just wanted to show you guys how I did that as well. So basically you can do this within Photoshop and you go to curves and then you'll go to the blue. Oh, shoot, I'm sorry. You'll go to the blue channel. Let me see if I can fast forward. And then you're gonna bring up those sliders. So you're gonna bring up the shadows to make them blue. And then you're gonna bring the other slider on the top right down to kind of create that sort of more warm type of look. And then you can play with the different channels. You can play with the red channel, the green channel to create different types of split tones. But ultimately, you can also do this within Luminar and actually does it for you. So if you click on Luminar and you can add your own split tones, and I think they're still online. I've created some presets that are free through Luminar. I think there's a link to it in my Instagram profile if you want to download those to kind of play with, because they're just creative, they're fun, and they kind of add that sort of fashion type of look. So you can add these different looks in there. It's very simple and easy to use. So hopefully y'all can apply that in what you do. So yay, we got through it. So we get to do giveaways.
All right.
Yeah. So I'll be giving away my book. I have drives here, but I don't have my book here. I will be giving away one book. So, or should I pick two people, one for the drive, one for the book?
No, I'm going to pick one for the drive from all the people in the participant in the Zoom room. You can pick the book from the people who followed you on Instagram.
Perfect. Let's see. Okay, I'm just going to sort of randomly select someone on here. Let's see. So it's Christian22. And I'm going to follow you on there. So you have won a book. So shoot me a message on Instagram with your address and I'll mail you a book that's signed. So yeah, thank you.
All right. And looks like it's Christian Monteroso. So it looks like he responded in the Zoom room chat. So he'll definitely be sending you a message there.
Perfect.
All right, great. So in terms of the G-Tech hard drive, the winner for that I've selected from the Zoom room is Joe Harvey. So Joe, please go into your chat and click on the to section and put my name and select my name there and shoot me your email address because I'll need to email you to get your shipping address. So please, while you were talking now, please put your email into the chat. And thank you all for attending. You know,
yes, thank you all so much. I didn't even get to say that. Thank you all for coming tonight and like spending your Friday evening with us. And man, if you have any questions at all, feel free to email me anytime. It's been such a fun evening. Thanks to G-Tech. Pete, you were awesome. And Samy's camera for having me. Seriously, y'all rock.
yeah.
Yeah.
We love doing these events. Samy's is a great partner with us. Rui, hold on, I will unmute you. You're somewhere in this list that I've got to find, I think. But we really we love working with you guys. Rui, I can't seem to find you. I don't know what happened there. I guess we lost her perhaps, but I did get the email address from Joe, so I think we are all good to go. And thank you guys for coming. We appreciate that you guys took the time to interact with us. And Dixie, thank you for speaking. We love having you at our events, and hopefully we look forward to seeing you guys at live actual trade shows in the near future.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you all.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
Awesome. Bye, everybody.